Hello guys and welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at Borderlands 4 on the RX 9070 XT paired with the Ryzen 7800X 3D. We'll look at all the resolutions from 1080p all the way up to 4K to see how the game runs. Starting off with 1080p here, and we've set the graphical settings to the badass preset, which maxes everything out, no upscaling or anything like that, and we are able to get between 60 to 70 FPS. Now you might be thinking, isn't that a bit low at 1080p on a 9070 XT? Not for this game, because Borderlands 4 is one of the most demanding Unreal Engine 5 games that I've checked on this channel, and it doesn't even use hardware lumen. Many call it unoptimized, and you know what, I would probably agree a bit with that, because you don't normally associate cel-shaded games with being extremely demanding. But I mean, this system does maintain a pretty good consistent frame time. Even if you're engaging in a bunch of combat, it does stay close to 60, and again, that is at native resolution without any upscaling or anything like that. Now, speaking of upscaling, we're going to go ahead and use FSR Quality. This is FSR 4 with the latest driver. It does add support for FSR 4. It actually looks pretty good in this game. I mean, even at 1080p, FSR 4 looks pretty good, especially in its quality preset. And that takes us all the way up to close to 80 to 90 FPS. And yeah, now the game feels right, because I usually play with a mouse and keyboard. And 60 FPS, while I would say that is my minimum, I like to get around 90 when I play with a mouse and keyboard, and it does deliver that, and it's relatively smooth. All that said though, this game is also very CPU demanding as well, and I'm already seeing some CPU bottleneck scenarios pop in as we hit above 90 FPS. So what that means is that that's kind of the limit of the Ryzen 7800X 3D. As a matter of fact, we could probably verify that if we drop FSR from quality to performance just for testing purposes. And as you can see, we're still around 90 to 110 FPS. So that makes sense, and we're clearly CPU bound here. We'll just speed through this recording so you guys can see the frame time smoothness. It actually runs pretty well. The 7800X3D does a pretty good job here. Our 1% lows are very close to our average FPS, which is kind of ideally what you want to see. Even in high-stress combat situations, it does pretty good. So that is a pretty good CPU test that we just did here, which is what 1080p is kind of ideal for that, right? With FSR Performance. And all things considered, actually it still looks pretty good. The next step that we can take, it's the only step that we can take for more frames, is to enable frame generation. And it actually works really well, guys, because frame generation works best when you're CPU bound, because you now have GPU power in the tank to use to generate the frames. So we are pretty much doubling our FPS, and it feels great, right? We started with 100 FPS, we're getting 200. So the game does feel like it's 100 FPS as far as latency wise, but we're getting double the frame rate, which is great. And I'm using my 240 Hz 4K OLED display, which has a 1080p mode. It essentially creates a smaller square on the screen that is actually 1920 by 1080, so it looks like it's not stretched out, and it looks great, right? I only wish we could get this level of performance at 1440p. Obviously, to do that, we're gonna have to make some sacrifices, like adjust some graphical settings, because we're still on the badass preset, which is every graphical settings maxed out. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We'll take a look at 1440p. The badass preset's gonna be way too much, but let's check it out anyway. What the heck. Now, if you'll remember, at 1080p with the badass preset, we were able to get 60 to 70 FPS, but at 1440p, without upscaling, that is just not possible. We're dropping all the way down into the 40s, low 40s for that matter. And yeah, I mean, you could use some FSR here, and it will probably bring you close to 60, but you could easily just drop the preset down a bit and get quite a bit more performance without even having to engage with upscaling yet. Now, for me, we did some testing on my previous video. As you can see here, drop into the high graphical preset. It's kind of what I've been using to play the game, because it's where you get the most performance, while the image fidelity remains more or less very similar to the badass or very high preset. So that's what we're going to do. Before we engage in any upscaling, we're going to go from badass preset to the high graphical preset. And will you look at that, guys? We're already into the 60s. With some rare drops that go a little bit below that. I mean, even if we move to like heavy combat areas, it does stay very close to 60, and we have yet to use any upscaling. Now, image quality wise, to me, it looks very similar to the badass preset. I mean, maybe there's a little bit less foliage, hard to tell unless you do like a side-by-side. But here's the thing, you could technically go and raise every setting up except for lighting quality, reflections quality, shadow quality, and should stay within a similar frame rate, because with Unreal Engine 5 games, those are the 3 settings that tend to cost the most performance. Sometimes shading quality can cost little as well. Although once Benchmark King releases his video, should be able to get the best actual optimized settings. But for now, I think dropping to the high preset works well enough. We're at a good level to enable upscaling now because we're already at 60, so let's go ahead and try that. We'll do FSR 4 quality with the high graphical preset. And when you look at that, guys, we see a crazy increase in performance, 90 to 100 FPS. The game still looks pretty good. So yeah, all things considered, as demanding as this game is, we can tweak things around and kind of get around that optimization and make things work, and hey, this feels perfectly fine. And as you've been able to see with the frame time and 1% lows, it's actually very smooth. I mean, this is kind of running smoother than it did on my previous video by the looks of it. I mean, we do get a hitch here and there. It's very rare. For the most part, it's actually surprisingly smooth. And if you'll remember, there we go, we just got a tiny little hitch. If you'll remember, right, as we did the test at 1080p with FSR Performance, we are now becoming CPU bound because our 7800 X3D is only good for around 100 to 110 depending on the area. So I think this is as good as we're going to be able to do. I mean, we can try. Let's go ahead and try FSR Performance. And as you guys can see, right, we're still at 100 to 110 FPS because now we are CPU bound. So it doesn't matter what we do. We could lower the graphical settings. The performance isn't going to increase much because we are CPU limited. So really the only other step to do would be to enable FSR frame generation. However, I think the better step to take in this case, so we can keep our GPU more saturated, is to go back to FSR quality. Even though I do think that FSR 4 in performance mode, even at 1440p, I think still looks very usable, very good. Just like DLSS 4, it's still very usable in my opinion anyway. But yeah, let's go back to FSR for quality and frame generation. And there you guys have it. We're now at around 170 to 180 FPS. We did get a little bit of a hitch there, but again, it does happen from time to time, but it's very rare. It could be something traversal related. So we are nearly doubling our FPS here, which is great. And again, the game still feels very good to play. I mean, if you have a 240 hertz refresh rate display, frame generation works really well for that. Although personally, I don't tend to use frame generation all that much, but it is a very good tool, I feel, that has its uses and time of use. So there you have it, guys, 1440p. I think the 9070 XT, all things considered, for as heavy as this game is, provides a very good gameplay experience if you make some tweaks. Obviously, you can't run things maxed out or you're going to be playing at 40 FPS. That's just how it is with this game. But I think with some of the tweaks that we made, you have a lot of options, whether you want to play at 60, 90, or all the way up to 180 with some frame generation, and it works relatively well. But we expect this 9070 XT to do well at 1440p. What about the big one though? 4K. That is going to be the true test. So let's go ahead and move on to 4K and see what we can make happen. Alright, so for 4K, it's going to be a whole other animal because that's a ton more pixels. So we're going to start already with the high graphical preset and FSR quality. And we are actually able to get a relatively, what I would call a 60 FPS experience, right? I mean, it's pretty close to 60. If you're playing on a VRR FreeSync display, which I'm assuming people that own 9070 XTs are, I would say this delivers a 60 FPS experience. Now, is it great with a mouse and keyboard? I think it's okay. For me, like I mentioned previously, 60 FPS is kind of my minimum when it comes to mouse and keyboard, and it also depends on the game too, by the way. I mean, if I'm playing something like Chronos the New Dawn, I think 60 for a game like that would work, although still I'd rather be able to get 90. So that is unfortunately going to be a bit difficult to do here because this game is quite a bit demanding. Unless we make some heavy sacrifices, 90 is going to be very difficult. But I think still at 4K with FSR4 quality, getting 60, it's okay. I think most people would probably be okay with getting 60 and this gameplay experience. I think we could probably do a little bit better than this. I don't know, you guys leave a comment down below and let me know what your preferences are when it comes to different games. I mean, I like to usually lock my frame rate, and depending on some type of games, I will play them at 60 FPS. Like if it's like a strategy turn-based game, I will lock it at 60 all day long. I don't care. Even if I can get 120, I would rather consume less power and dump less heat in my room because it works. But for a game like this, yeah, I mean, you want to have that better latency, increased fluidity, responsiveness. That is a big one for a game like this. I mean, people would be willing to drop the graphics to low to get more frames, although this game does not look good with the low graphical preset. Don't try that unless you're playing on a handheld or something like that. But let's do the obvious, obviously, right? We'll drop from FSR Quality to FSR Performance. So we do end up gaining a little bit of more extra performance. We're now in the 70s, 70 to 80, whereas previously we were 50 to 60. So it is a decent gain, but not quite the 90 that I would be looking for when I play with a mouse and keyboard with a game like this. So yeah, guys, 4K is going to be very taxing. You're going to have to make more sacrifices to get a lot more frames. So unfortunately, the image quality is going to have to take a bigger hit, but I still think for the most part, it still feels fine. I could see myself playing the game like this if I absolutely had to at 4K. So, to each their own. You guys let me know down below what you would do and if you're playing this game on a 9070 XT at 4K. One thing that's been kind of interesting to see though, when we started at 1080p, as far as VRAM goes, we didn't touch much on it. I didn't on the video, but the VRAM consumption has pretty much stays relatively the same. Even at 1080p, we were allocating around 11 gigs and using around close to 9 gigs. So I wonder how this game would run on the 8 gigabyte graphics cards, even at 1080p. Might have to take a look at the RTX 5060 at some point, depending on how well this video does. So I am curious to see that. Are we going to have to make some tweaks and lower texture quality? Not sure. We might actually have to if you only had 8 gigs of VRAM. And normally Unreal Engine 5 games are not that VRAM heavy, but some of them are, and this one is a bit more than usual for sure. Well, let's go ahead and try some frame generation on top of FSR Performance. My rule of thumb when I use frame generation is that I'll try to get at least 60 FPS. Now for a game like this, ideally I'd be wanting to get more than that. But still, it does nearly double our FPS. If you remember, we were getting around 70 FPS with FSR Performance, and adding frame generation does bring us around 140 FPS or so, and it feels okay, right? So yeah, guys, at 4K, your hands are going to be a little bit tight. If you're playing at 1440p, you should have no problem enjoying this game in a high refresh rate experience, but at 4K, you are going to be limited close to 60 unless you're okay with frame generation at around 60 FPS or so. A lot of people are actually. Another thing you could do to gain a little bit extra performance would be to drop the preset from high to medium. And we did gain an extra 20 to 30 FPS or so. But remember that we do have FSR Performance and frame generation enabled as well. Now, one thing that does noticeably take a hit when you drop to the medium preset is the foliage distant draw. It is rather noticeable. So it depends how much that bothers you. But I still think that medium overall looks alright. Although for me, I think high would be my minimum. I think high looks pretty good. It's a good middle ground. So So there you have it, guys. The RX 9070 XT and 7800 X3D in Borderlands 4. What is one of the most, if not the most demanding Unreal Engine 5 game that doesn't use hardware ray tracing. I know, it's crazy. And, you know, I do get flack sometimes in the comment section. People say that I don't criticize these games for being unoptimized, and I do. I just have my own way that I do it. Like, I'll say that the visuals don't warrant this level of graphical demand, or if the game is stuttery, I do point that out. But it's just not really in my nature to be a ranty type person, so I let you guys come to your own conclusions. I, of course, express my opinion when I don't think a game is well optimized or way too demanding, which I think this game is. I thought that Chronos, the New Dawn, also was a bit, but then again, that's Bloober Team, which has had problems with unoptimized games, and I think Chronos, the New Dawn, actually ran pretty well as far as stuttering goes. It was very fluid. But Gearbox is also a much bigger studio, more experienced studio, so you would expect a little bit more from them. And this is also a different type of game that requires responsiveness, and you know, most people don't have high-end hardware, which the 9070 XT and 7800 XT is relatively high-end. You know, it's not the top of the line, but it is up there. It is very fast hardware. So yeah, guys, I still think you can make things work. 4K is going to be a little bit more challenging. You're going to have to make some more sacrifices, but I think if you play at 1440p, you'll have a solid experience. And for what it's worth, 4K is still a very good gameplay experience with a 9070 XT. I could see myself playing the game with FSR Quality, FSR 4 Performance, and the high graphical preset. I think around 70 FPS is okay. It is what it is. But I don't know, you guys leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Are you playing the game, or are you protesting and not buying it? Which, hey, that's well within your right, and you should vote with your wallet if you want. Express your opinion. Just don't be confrontational about it, and don't expect other people to carry your flag. That's all. I think that's very reasonable, isn't it? I don't know. But you guys let me know what you think. I'll see you on the next one, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.